Ted Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. But from the very beginning, his life was built on deception. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was just 22 when she gave birth to him at a home for unwed mothers. The identity of Bundy's father remains a mystery to this day. Some believe he was the result of an affair. Others whisper about something far darker. To avoid the shame of an illegitimate child, Ted's grandparents raised him as their own, while his mother posed as his older sister. It was a lie that shaped his earliest years. Some say he didn't learn the truth until his teenage years, a revelation that may have fueled the anger festering inside him. Ted Bundy's childhood wasn't marked by extreme abuse or neglect. In many ways, he was just another kid growing up in 1950s America. But beneath the surface, something was deeply wrong. He never quite fit in, some would later say. There was something off about him. Unlike most boys his age, Ted didn't just read adventure stories. He was obsessed with crime magazines. Stories of violent criminals and gruesome murders fascinated him. He didn't just flip through the pages, he studied them. And then there was the voyeurism. Ted was known to sneak through his neighborhood at night, spying on women as they undressed. This wasn't just childish curiosity. It was a pattern of behavior, a glimpse into the mind of a predator in the making. To the outside world, he was polite, intelligent, and well-mannered. But behind that smile was a boy who had already begun shaping himself into something far more dangerous. The world just didn't know it yet. By the late 1960s, Ted Bundy was a young man with a bright future. Or at least, that's what he wanted the world to believe. He enrolled at the University of Washington, studying psychology, a subject that would later help him manipulate and deceive everyone around him. He was charming, articulate, and, on the surface, just like any other ambitious student. But those who knew him best said there was something calculated about him, something cold beneath the charm. The woman who changed everything. Stephanie Brooks. She's beautiful, confident, from a well-off family. The ideal girlfriend, the ideal life, the ideal future. At least that's what Bundy thought. Then, in 1969, Ted met Stephanie Brooks. She was everything he wanted, elegant, sophisticated, and from a world he desperately wished to belong to. She had status, wealth, and a future already paved for her. Ted, the son of a single mother with no real financial security, saw her as his golden ticket. Stephanie liked Ted at first. He was charming, intelligent, and driven, but as time went on, cracks started to show. Then, one day, Stephanie ended it. She told Ted he lacked direction, that he wasn't the kind of man she could see a future with. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a rejection of everything he thought he was. And Ted Bundy? He couldn't handle rejection. Most people move on, they heal, they grow. Ted Bundy didn't. He fixated. He obsessed. And soon, he decided that if he couldn't control love, he would control something else. And that's when the disappearances began. Ted Bundy had always been a watcher. He studied people, analyzed them, learned what made them tick. But by the late 1960s, that fascination had turned into something far more sinister. Former classmates would later recall that Ted had a habit of appearing unexpectedly. A familiar face in a place he had no reason to be. Women noticed him watching them, his eyes lingering just a little too long. At first, they brushed it off, but some would later swear Bundy wasn't just staring, he was studying them. There were whispers, stories that couldn't quite be proven, reports of a young man loitering near women's apartments, a shadowy figure seen outside bedroom windows late at night, a car following female students for just a little too long. But this was the late 1960s. There were no security cameras, no social media alerts, just an uneasy feeling, a feeling that someone was out there, watching. But Ted Bundy wasn't just watching anymore. He was practicing. He was perfecting. Friends and family would later admit that things often went missing around Ted. A watch here, a wallet there, a stolen credit card used just enough to stay under the radar. But the truth was, Bundy wasn't stealing for money. He was stealing for control. He was testing boundaries, pushing limits, seeing what he could get away with, and each time he did, he got a little bolder. By the time the 1970s arrived, Ted Bundy wasn't just a thief. He wasn't just a stalker. He was something far worse. And soon, the world would know his name. Linda Ann Healy was everything you'd expect from a promising young college student. She was 21 years old, a psychology major at the University of Washington, and a talented radio broadcaster. Every morning, she delivered ski reports to the city, her voice cheerful and full of energy. But on the morning of February 1st, 1974, she never showed up. Linda Ann Healy didn't just vanish. Someone had taken her. But there was no sign of forced entry, no struggle, no screams in the night. It was as if she had simply disappeared. By mid-1974, women were disappearing at an alarming rate across Washington and Oregon. Janice Ott, Denise Naslund, Jorgen Hawkins, Kathy Parks. They were students, daughters, sisters. And in each case, there was no trace, just an eerie silence where they once were. A young woman lounges at the park. A man approaches, polite, smiling, struggling to carry something with his injured arm.
"Excuse me, could you help me with my sailboat?" he asks. His voice is soft, his demeanor harmless. And for most people, that would be the last conversation they ever had.
He was methodical. He played the role of the helpless man, drawing his victims in with a false sense of security. Once they let their guard down, he struck. Ted Bundy didn't hunt his victims in the dead of night. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't lurk in the shadows. He walked in broad daylight, smiled, and simply asked for help. And that was the most terrifying part. He didn't look like a monster, but he was. Once inside, the trap was set. The passenger seat was missing, ripped out to give him more space. As she turned to ask why, he swung, a crowbar to the head. And when she woke up, if she woke up at all, it was already too late. By the end of 1974, more than a dozen women had vanished. Police had no leads, no bodies, no idea who was behind it. But one name kept coming up, a man named Ted. July 14th, 1974, a perfect summer day. The park was packed, thousands of people soaking in the sun, enjoying the water completely at ease. But in the crowd, a man was watching, calculating, waiting. Ted, soft-spoken, polite. "Excuse me, could you help me with my sailboat?" "It's just over at my car." Ted, soft-spoken, polite. "Excuse me, could you help me with my sailboat?" "It's just over at my car." She hesitates for a second, but he looks harmless. How could saying no to a man with a broken arm be the right thing to do? That was the last time anyone saw Janice Ott alive. Hours later, Denise Naslund, a 19-year-old student, decided to take a quick walk to the restroom. Her friends expected her to be gone for just a few minutes, but she never came back. Two young women, vanished, in broad daylight, with thousands of people around, and nobody saw it happen. For months, women had been disappearing with no trace, no witnesses, no evidence. But this time, Bundy made a mistake. He was too bold, too confident, and for the first time, people noticed him. Eyewitness, uncertain. "I remember him. He was polite, well-spoken, but he had a cast on his arm and he kept asking women for help. Something just felt off." Second eyewitness. And he introduced himself. He said his name was Ted. Until now, Ted Bundy had been a ghost, a predator who moved unseen. But in his arrogance, he slipped. And in doing so, he left behind the first real clue to his identity. By the fall of 1974, Ted Bundy had a problem. The Pacific Northwest was getting too hot. investigators were beginning to piece together a disturbing pattern. Young, dark-haired women vanishing without a trace, and one name whispered among the witnesses: Ted. So he left Seattle behind and moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. He enrolled in law school, eager to blend in, to reinvent himself. But the truth was, Ted Bundy wasn't starting a new life. He was continuing his old one. Within weeks of arriving in Utah, women started disappearing again. Nancy Wilcox, Melissa Smith, Laura Amy, the same pattern, the same fear. But this time, investigators were watching. Bundy had always counted on his intelligence, his charm, his ability to blend in. But he underestimated one thing. Police were beginning to connect the dots. The disappearances in Seattle, the missing women in Utah. The victims looked the same. The method was identical. And now, the FBI was paying attention. By early 1975, Bundy expanded his territory again, this time moving into Colorado. He had grown bolder, more confident, striking again and again. Corinne Campbell, Julie Cunningham, Denise Oliverson, one after another they vanished, and this time, Bundy made no effort to slow down. But with each attack, Bundy was getting careless. Witnesses described a man in a Volkswagen Beetle, a man with a fake injury, and the name Ted continued to appear. A description: dark-haired, charming, driving a tan Volkswagen Beetle. Officers are told to be on high alert. The hunt for Bundy is tightening. Ted Bundy thought he was untouchable, but for the first time, the walls were closing in. August 16, 1975, a routine traffic stop in Utah. Ted Bundy, calm and collected, sits behind the wheel of his tan Volkswagen Beetle. But when officers search the car, the mask begins to slip. A crowbar, handcuffs, rope, a ski mask, a serial killer's toolkit. Suspicion falls on him, but with no solid proof of murder, Bundy is charged only with attempted kidnapping. For now, the law is closing in, but Bundy isn't done yet. Bundy thrives on control, and jail is suffocating. So, when given access to the law library in Aspen, Colorado, he seizes the opportunity. No guards, no chains, no hesitation. He leaps from a second-story window and disappears into the wilderness. For 6 days, he survives on stolen food, breaking into empty cabins. But the mountains are unforgiving, and when hunger takes over, he makes a mistake, stealing a car. Police catch him again. His first attempt at freedom fails, but he's already planning the next one. Bundy learns from his failures. This time, he won't run through the mountains. He'll vanish completely. December 30th, 1977. He starves himself, slipping through a hole in the ceiling of his cell, crawling through the vents, and dropping into the jailer's apartment. While the guards celebrate the holidays, Bundy walks right out the front door. By the time they notice, he's on a bus heading south. This isn't just an escape. It's the beginning of a killing spree. January 15th, 1978. Ted Bundy, now a fugitive, arrives in Tallahassee, Florida. Desperate, reckless, and more dangerous than ever. That night, he enters the Chi Omega sorority house. In less than 15 minutes, he brutally attacks 4 women, killing 2. But he isn't done. Weeks later, he abducts and murders 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his youngest and final victim. The killings are chaotic, sloppy. He isn't careful anymore. His time is running out. February 15th, 1978. A stolen car, a suspicious officer. Bundy is pulled over once again, but this time there's no escape, no tricks, no clever words. Ted Bundy is finally caught, for good. February 15th, 1978, Pensacola, Florida. A stolen orange Volkswagen Rabbit swerves slightly as it moves down the road. A patrol officer, noticing something off, decides to investigate. The driver, disheveled, thin, exhausted, tries to talk his way out of it. But this time, Ted Bundy's charm isn't enough. The officer arrests him, finding stolen credit cards, fake IDs, and something far more damning: evidence linking him to the recent murders. The man who once slipped through the cracks is finally in custody, and this time there's no escaping what's coming next. Ted Bundy was always the center of his own story, and now the world was watching. His trial, the first to be nationally televised, turned him into an unsettling spectacle. Smiling for cameras, waving to reporters, he relished the attention. And in true Bundy fashion, he chose to represent himself, believing no one could outsmart him. But behind the arrogance, there was fear. Witness after witness took the stand. Fingerprints, bite marks, brutal testimonies. The evidence was overwhelming. Bundy could argue, charm, and manipulate all he wanted, but the truth was undeniable. July 24th, 1979. The verdict, guilty. The sentence, death. Bundy's mask finally cracks. For the first time, the weight of his crimes settles on his shoulders. But he won't go quietly. For years, he plays the legal system, filing appeal after appeal, buying himself time. But time is running out. His final confession, over 30 murders. The true number, only Bundy knows. And on January 24th, 1989, at 7:16 a.m., the story of Ted Bundy ends in the electric chair. Outside the prison, the crowd erupts in cheers. The nightmare is over. Justice at last.